As car enthusiasts, we tend to focus on the sexy side of the automotive world. I mean, that is after all why we all became car enthusiasts in the first place. We tend to focus on cars with good looks or crazy performance or even both. But then you got these crazy, weird, quirky cars, you know, the ones that a lot of us make fun of. Well, I decided to make a video featuring 13 of the quirkiest cars out there, and if you own one of these cars, please don't get offended. First up on our list is the POP50. This car was named the world's smallest car by the Guinness Book of World Records in 2010. It sports one seat, one door, one headlamp, and barely enough space to fit a human being inside of it. It's literally just double the size of one of those Fisher-Price crazy coupes we all had as kids, and quite frankly looks a lot like one too. It only produces 3.35 horsepower and tops out at 37 miles per hour, but on the plus side, will get you roughly 83 miles per gallon of gas. One of the stranger factoids about this car is that it has no reverse function on its 3-speed manual transmission. This means you literally have to stick your foot out the door and Fred Flintstone it in order to back up. Or you can just use the dedicated lever located towards the rear. They recently started making brand new replicas of these, but come with a price tag of $16,000. I could literally do a 4-hour video of vehicles that would be better for less money that would include the likes of golf carts and mopeds. Not really sure what the appeal would be there, but I'm sure there's someone out there that's quirky enough for it. Let's face it, when it comes to the world of being quirky, nobody quite gets the job done quite like Japan. And that quirky innovation is showcased in the next car on the list, the 1996 Suzuki X90. This 2-door, 2-seater coupe was built as a replacement for the Samurai compact SUV for the US market. Not really sure how this would be a replacement for an SUV of any kind, which had to have contributed to its criticism of the X90's debut in 1993. SUVs typically are meant to have more cargo space than cars, and this had a trunk so small and useless I'm not even sure why they even bothered putting one on it. They introduced this oddball as a car intended not only for the young but also the young at heart who wanted something different. Nobody can argue that they didn't deliver on the different part. God knows this was not going to be for the speed demons and street racers, considering its lackluster 1.6 liter 4-cylinder engine that gave you a whopping 95 horsepower. But what it did offer, however, was a neat little vehicle to do modest off-roading in. In fact, if you got it in the all-wheel drive configuration, it actually served that purpose pretty well, making it a pretty cool beach car for the 90s. Unfortunately for Suzuki, its off-road capabilities were not enough to keep it going. Only 7,205 were ever imported into the US, and that closed this odd chapter in the Suzuki book. If you're interested, you can still find them today, and only for about $5,000. Let's take a look at the classic 70s quirk, the 1975 AMC Pacer. The 70s were an interesting time. This decade gave birth to some truly badass cars and even better rock music, but super questionable interior decor choices. The 2-door, 4-seater Pacer had a different approach when being designed. They took the inside-out approach, meaning they started with the chassis and seating, then built the vehicle around that as compact as possible. AMC was anticipating a market demand for smaller cars and wanted to be ahead of the curve with something that wouldn't just fit 4 people in it, but comfortably fit 4 people in it. The end result was them completely nailing the objective. For its size, it had pretty good clearances. It took second place in the 1979 Baja 1000, being driven by Bob Olson and Bob Stone. If you're wondering where you've seen this before, what they called a jelly bean design before, it was probably in the Wayne's World movies where it was more of a notable cameo. This car was called a lot of different things. AMC called it the first wide small car. Car and Driver in 1976 called it the Flying Fishbowl, also referred to as the George Jetson mode of transportation, but we here at Vehicle Virals just like to call it quirky, and pretty cool. So let's face the facts here. It wouldn't be a Vehicle Virals video if BMW wasn't mentioned in some form or fashion. But you might be wondering which Beamer could have possibly made this list. They don't really make anything that quirky. Well, my friends, that's because you've never come across number 4 on the list, the BMW Isetta 250 and 300. We're venturing back into the Fisher-Price class of cars now, but at least this one can go in reverse. Nicknamed a bubble car for painfully obvious reasons, this bad boy became the king of 1-cylinders, cranking out a whopping 13 horsepower. When you open up the front-facing door and get in, you will be underwhelmed by the one church pew for a seat it has and the tight confines as well. But come on, what do you expect from an automobile that was designed as a loophole so people can drive it with no more paperwork than you'd need to drive a moped with? The Isetta was originally an Italian design, but the Germans took it over and objectively made it better, and I do mean objectively in this case. Once they finished, none of the parts from the Italian version were compatible with the new German-made Isetta. That gives you a pretty good idea of what BMW thought of its design before the takeover, but to their credit, they did end up breaking a world record with their version. All in all, the Isetta ended up achieving some level of success considering it sold 161,728 units, making it the top selling single-cylinder car in the world. Still nothing I'd ever fantasize about owning, but to each their own. Quirky cars are usually very unusual cars that fill a void in the auto world for an even more unusual niche market. I find none more unusual or niche than our number 5 spot on the list, the Smart Fortwo Electric. Look, if you live in a major city in the US, we're all pretty used to and familiar with smart cars. They're common enough and have been for a amount of time that now we don't stare and snicker anymore. The electric version was actually a pretty big step for the company that went almost entirely unnoticed because, well, frankly, most of us don't care. These crank out about 80 horsepower with 118 pound-feet of torque. You only get about 70 to 80 miles on a full charge, and it takes about 3 hours to fully charge. Unless you're unlucky enough to have to charge it on 120 volt, then you're looking at about 16.5 hours. Yikes. Now, all of that isn't so bad, I get it. You're trying to go green, chip in on saving the environment so my state doesn't disappear into the ocean. Here's where I take issue with it. The MSRP on these is $28,750. Where did they get the balls? A brand new Tesla Model 3 has a MSRP of $36,000, not that much more, and has the car be in any conceivable category, while still being the environmentally conscious car you wanted. More tech, way faster, actually fun to drive, 260 to 310 miles per charge, the list goes on. And okay, I get it, we have a budget, so if $28,750 is the price you actually want to be at, then just get a Chevy Volt. It's going to be much closer in price to the Smart and again beat it in every possible category, unless of course you have trouble looking for parking. It's almost as though being super small is the attraction to the smart car crowd. It must be an arrogance thing, in the sense that you can take the moral high ground over all the other electric car drivers because yours is smaller, so it must be better for the environment. But guess what? It's not. It's just an overpriced subpar car. You're literally better off just getting a moped in this case. Number 6 on the list is going to take us to the UK, where we're going to get a glimpse at a very iconic car, but is more commonly used as the butt end of a joke. The 1973 Reliant Robin. This goofy ass 3-wheel laughingstock was famously featured on an episode of Top Gear, which is why most of you probably recognize it. Now, all jokes aside, it is a peculiar and tiny car, but like most of the cars like it on this list, served as an inexpensive vehicle that could be driven with only a motorcycle license. The 3-wheel design also made this vehicle fall into a motorcycle tax rate, which made it less expensive to own one. All pretty good ways to work around the law in order to make car ownership more feasible for people with lower income. Now there's the famous issue I know you just can't wait for me to get to, the high rollover rate. Yeah, it's no secret that a 3-wheel vehicle is more likely to roll over. It's pretty much common sense using basic physics knowledge. But the rollover problem was actually greatly exaggerated in the Top Gear episode. Sometime after the episode aired, Jeremy Clarkson admitted that they tampered with the differential to get it to roll over more often. They are a little bit safer than we all thought, but if you are for some reason still driving one, I would strongly suggest you refrain from taking a 90-degree turn while going full speed. Up next is something more on the rare and exotic side of things, or at least it was trying to be packaged up and passed off as an exotic. I'm talking about the Volkswagen XL1, and it's number 7 on our list. The XL1 was a swing at something different by Volkswagen when they decided to give this guy a shot. It was only available in Europe and it had a limited production of just 250 units. It was kind of an interesting venture. It was Volkswagen really stepping out of their box when they came out with this diesel-powered plug-in hybrid 2-seater. It's kind of misleading though. It looks like a really fun and zippy roadster, but in reality it was more of a practical car. Its body, engine, and transmission were all built for economy, and this was depressively reinforced by the lackluster 0 to 60 time of 12.5 seconds. Looking at the car, you would think you're in a real treat on the track. It has all the makings of a supercar. It's constructed of primarily out of carbon fiber, aluminum, plastic, has butterfly doors, and sits even lower than a Ferrari F8 Tributo. So of course you would assume it would take off like a Ferrari, but in reality you wouldn't be able to beat the POP 50 we talked about earlier in a stoplight drag race. So what does Volkswagen limited edition eco-friendly economic car cost? around $140,000. Well, I guess the price is where Volkswagen decided to stop being conservative. They didn't even come up with the body style. Everybody knows they plagiarized off the GM EV1. In all seriousness though, it's not always about speed and performance. The XL1 did achieve an impressive 240 miles per gallon and achieved their goal of creating an ultra eco-friendly car. But the high price tag coupled with Volkswagen's emission scandal put an end to the XL1, continuing as a regular production car in the Volkswagen lineup under a different name. Number 8 on the list is going to take us yet again to the European market, but focus on a different class of quirky car. We're going to dibble our toes in the untreaded waters of crossovers. Let me introduce to you the 2017 Citroen C4 Cactus. It seems like everyone is trying to take a stab at the crossover scene. Mitsubishi even gave a breath of new life to the discontinued Eclipse and brought it back as a crossover. The brand's Messiah now drives among us in a mixed review new form, so why can't Citroen do something just as weird? Well, they can, and they did. And in fact, they introduced it as a concept car in 2007. So they actually did it before Mitsubishi, and it's even weirder. Okay. It's not that weird, but it does have this one distinct feature that has us cringing. It's their air bump panels on the doors. The concept behind them is great. They're there to protect the car from dings and scratches, which is nice that a car manufacturer is thinking of a way to keep your car looking sharp for the long run. Except that it fails completely at this because it looks like shit out of the factory. Seriously, I would rather just have the dings and scratches. At least you have to get close and personal to see them. The panels look terrible as soon as you see them, close or far. They are about as noticeable as a skid mark on tidy whities. Everything else about the subcompact crossover SUV is exactly what you would expect from Citroen. Amenity filled, smooth ride, enough pep in a step for an SUV and great on gas. It's just that one big ugly detail, and I'm not alone on this. After 3 years they ditched the panels and started making them look classy and sharp like you would expect from a European car. If the mullet haircut was personified as a car, it would be number 9, the 1978 Subaru Brat. The bi-drive recreational all-terrain transporter, or Brat for short, was Japan's export-only car but for tax purposes, a truck. So back in the 70s, there was a 25% tariff on all foreign import trucks, which obviously spiked up the price when it finally got to the consumer. So to avoid this, Subaru made a truck. They basically threw a couple lawn chairs in the back, duct taped them down, and bing bang boom, now it's a car. I mean, these back seats were in true 70s fashion in the sense that safety wasn't even considered. As kids, you and your siblings had some serious choices to make calling seating. Do you risk falling out every time your dad hits a pothole, or stay in front with Pops while he chain smokes? Either way, someone is going to have to hold his beer while he parallel parks. The 78 Brats were notoriously underpowered, with only 70 horsepower under the hood, which was remedied in later models with a turbo bumping the HP to 100. These things were actually pretty capable on different terrains, perfect as a keg transporter to the party in the woods with plenty of room for half the school. The Brat became a true icon of American badass when it was featured as the car choice by Rex of Rex Kwon-do in movie Napoleon Dynamite. True legend status vehicle of the quirkiest kind. Number 10 on the list was a good old-fashioned early 2000s throwbacks to the 50s, and it was done so with style and tons of muscle. The 10th spot belongs to the 2003 Chevrolet SSR. The late 90s and early 2000s was a time for those retro throwbacks for the auto industry, and they picked up an awesome time era to model after, the 40s and 50s. The most famous of these old school nostalgia designs would definitely have to be the PT Cruiser, but unlike the PT Cruiser, the Chevy SSR didn't look like a pile of dog. They actually pulled off the old style with a new twist look and became something you'd actually want to drive. They took the same V8 engine from the C6 Corvette and placed it in the SSR, giving it a respectful 300 horsepower. You can do 0 to 60 in 7.7 seconds. Just to make it even sweeter, they threw in a hardtop retractable roof just to score some more unneeded style points. The 2006 models took these to the next level with some small modifications, unleashing 400 horsepower. Oddly enough, these cars didn't really last that long. They were only made for 3 years, and the SSR found itself in an unusual list of 8 worst Indy cars ever. It was also revealed that the SSR became very unstable at 200 miles per hour, while one was being used to attempt a land speed record, but honestly I'm not surprised. It shows just how narrow a market this quirky car appealed to when you had such an incredible package and it dies in 3 years. But the dumpster fire we call the PT Cruiser went on to be made for 10 years. Guys, don't kill me for the PT Cruiser hate, this is just supposed to be a fun video. Italy is definitely a mecca for style and fashion. It seems to run through their blood. They just know how to look good, and everything they make looks like $1 million. It comes natural to them. They don't even have to try it. In fact, they have a word for that. It's called sprezzatura, which roughly translates to a certain nonchalance. But what happens when Italians try too hard? Well, then you get the eyesore of number 11, the 1999 Fiat Multipla. This multi-purpose vehicle was based on the Brava, but offered increased seating and cargo space. It has an adequate 4-cylinder, 102 horsepower engine and gets decent gas mileage. It's actually a pretty good car. In fact, Top Gear named it Car of the Year in 2000, but also gave it the prestigious award of the ugliest car. And that's what landed this vehicle on our list today. It all really boils down to one aesthetic choice, this love handle right here. Sure, there's other reasons why it makes us want to gouge our eyes when we look at it, but that one detail throws it completely down the drain. Thankfully though, Fiat finally came to their senses and got rid of it in the 2004 redesign, effectively preventing it from further criticism about its appearance. Number 12 is a brand I'm sure none of you guys expected to see here, but it earned a place nonetheless. We're going to dive in and take a look at the 1986 Lamborghini LM002, also known as the Rambo Lambo. The conception of the LM002 was created as a vehicle intended for military forces. Unfortunately for Lamborghini, it was not well received, and the only notable military use, and I use that term military very loosely in this context, it was that Uday Hussein owned one. If we're being honest though, your car being owned by the brutal dictator's son isn't exactly what we call good PR. It would eventually end up in the hands of the US military in 2004 and was used to demonstrate effectiveness of roadside bombs, which for car people is bittersweet. The civilian version delivered everything you would expect from Lamborghini in terms of luxury and comfort, power tinted windows, leather seats, AC, and even a roof mounted stereo system. Pirelli was commissioned to make the tires for it, and the Italian tire company delivered the Scorpion, which had a custom run flat design to it. If that wasn't enough, it boasted a V12 engine under the hood, which is exactly what we expect for Lamborghini. It's actually both a shame and a mystery as to why they did away with the LM002 when Mercedes G-Wagon is popular and prolific. The last time we'd really see and hear about the Rambo Lambo is the 2009 release of the Fast and the Furious, and just like that, poof, it disappeared forever. Okay, so last but not least of our list of quirky cars is number 13, the Nissan Cube. Yes, we should all be familiar with these cars, we see them all the time. Typically the car of choice by IT pros, hardcore gamers, and anime enthusiasts. But let's be honest, anime enthusiasts tend to love anything from Japan. If the Japanese made literally anything, these guys would be lining up to buy it. Interesting factoid here, the Cube was actually around since 1998, but was a Japanese only vehicle. Also, the first generation of this car did not have the feature that really got it on this list, the awkward wraparound window. This wouldn't be added into the second generation of the Cube that didn't roll off the lot until 2002. 7 years after it's when it finally hit the US market, it made us Americans start to ponder as to whether we loved it or hated it, because typically there really is no between. Its funky boxy shape and wraparound window just made it seem so odd, especially for such a modest car. And yes, these are actually cars, not SUVs, despite the body style would make you think. All of their trims offered a 4-cylinder but did include a diesel option. I mean, they're alright cars, I can't really say anything negative except to point out the 2010 recall they got. Apparently they failed to abide by federal motor vehicle safety standards for having excessive fuel leakage in the event of a rear-end collision. Although it was practical and relatively safe, I still reserve the right to point out that they are quirky and weird, hence the spot on this list. Alright guys, now it's your turn. Is there a quirky car I might have missed that really deserved a spot on this list? Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button, and if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe for more content in the future. As always, thanks for watching. Till next time.